Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today's guest is a Miss Fitness Olympia, associate editor of Bodyscaping magazine, and in her free time somehow manages to host her own weekly show, true fitness icon, Monica Brant.
Thank you, John. Hello.
Hello. Thank you, Monica.
I like that. Within the free time.
I don't know how you do any of it, sincerely. I don't know how I have. So yeah, let's start right there. That's perfect. So one of my questions for you was just that, how did you, let me first ask this, get into podcasting? I'm so fascinated with it. And you've had so many wonderful guests too. So I'm just interested in learning a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you. So yeah, when the lockdown happened in 2020, I was here obviously at home, and I just thought it'd be fun to catch up with my friends. It'd be fun to talk to some of the people I know from the industry. And so I just kind of thought the interesting thing is when the lockdown happened, my husband and I had a guy that he was coming in to work with my husband on the horse business that we have, doing video and all this for my husband's business. And so when the lockdown happened, he was here. So he just stayed with us for like 8 months.
Wow.
He just kind of moved in. And so he started off with my husband, and they started off a little show, and it took off like crazy within my husband's horse business industry. And then I thought, well, there's one night they weren't doing shows because they were doing them every night because no one had anything else to do. And so I was like, well, Tuesday night's open, I'm going to do one. And so I just thought, I just want to talk to my friends, but that's kind of what I thought. But then as I started it and really kind of figured out what is the mission basically of the Monica Brant Show. Originally, it was to highlight and share the stories of the legendary athletes and the nutritional gurus and the people from the photography and the magazine background that have helped build the bodybuilding fitness industry that we all know and love, and that I've been in for almost 30 years now. And I thought it would be really cool to tell stories with a different twist, because sometimes I'm talking like Ronnie Coleman was my first guest.
Right.
And so, as a female, like I'm not going to talk to these guys, these big bodybuilding guys, like other guys would talk to them, right? I'm going to have a little bit different feel and different questions and different things that I think are interesting to hear and learn about from my guests. So that's where it was originally, and still is for the most part, but I've added in a few things. Like we brought in all of the cover models for Bodyscape magazine. We brought the cover models in. So like I was just doing that recording today with this amazing girl who is from the country, Georgia. And she has a tremendous story. And it's just like, you've got to tell these stories. And originally we were doing these all live, which was fun.
Oh yeah.
And there's a place for live, right? My first show is live with Ronnie Coleman, but and that was April 2020. So, I've done so many along the way, and we've decided that live isn't the best route, because what happened is everyone wanted to talk so much, and I got so many. It was over an hour, then it was an hour and a half, and some people I just couldn't get them to quit. I couldn't say, okay, time's up in the middle of this amazing story. So what we've tried to do now is do recordings and then produce the show, and then have like 2 or 3 segments that come out. So it kind of tells the story within the week.
Yeah, I actually kind of follow a similar format, but just by coincidence. That's amazing. No, I love that. Yeah, that's great. And you've had wonderful guests. And too, I love that you're able to actually use both platforms with the magazine as well, and share those stories. Like you said, I can't wait to hear that. Like I will check out that episode.
This girl was, we got tears in one
really?
part of it. I mean, she's gone through a lot, and she's developed just a tremendous journey. Like to know what she grew up in with, kind of the communist culture that was happening in Georgia at the time. Yeah. And where she is now in her life, and just how she's taken all of her opportunities that came to her. She's taken them and rolled with them. And it's like, you don't know these stories until you start diving into somebody's story. Right.
Sure. Right.
So for years, I've been the one being interviewed, like here, and now I'm doing the interviewing, and it's so different.
Yes.
It really is. It's like just trying to allow what the things that I really want to kind of pull out, from somebody, especially when they're the men. Like I'm got Lee Haney on my schedule,
Oh,
Mr.
that would be
Olympia, right?
amazing. Yeah.
And he's
That would
like,
be great.
"You're going to be the first female that's ever interviewed me." I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah,
And
man.
are
Wow.
you familiar with these belts?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So Steve was just one of my recent guests, and the guy that owns those, I met him back in the 90s. He was just starting off, and I was just starting off. He made the belt for me. I did a little work for him for his calendar, that his first calendar he ever did. And anyways, we just had this amazing, awesome talk this last week and for my show. And he said the same thing. He's like, "You're the first female that's ever interviewed me." So, it's just kind of cool.
Wow.
It's like, it's
Wow.
just fun. So I know there's a little different twist there. And
Oh, that's huge. And he is such a big like get, honestly. He recently, I believe, interviewed with Sean Ray, maybe, but that was the first one in like years. Lee Haney is just, he's like Mount Rushmore. He's very, he's harder to get to than Arnold, I think. That's amazing.
I'm
And
excited. He's
yeah.
got some cool stories, and obviously, and some stuff he's doing now. And so
Mhm.
it's been a lot of fun.
It's amazing. It's great. And what a wonderful way for you to, again, transition as somebody who used to be interviewed all the time, and give you an opportunity to share that platform to put other people out there, and give them some shine. That's amazing. Yeah. Let me kind of transition a little, because you've been on my mind so much. It's like I'm 19 again. It's ridiculous. I studied.
How old are you now?
At 38. So
Aww.
I was truly, a fan. I grew up in the magazine era, right? So, stars were made. The world is so different now, and innovation is good, but it was just a different world, and people don't understand unless they probably experienced it and lived through it. And it's so I have a lot of nostalgia and everything, but studying your career in kind of preparation for this conversation, I really realized why I love you as like a fan, and why you were so I think why you were kind of endeared to me, and I want to try to explain it to you. And I think it's this. It's definitely you won an Olympia, so we'll start there. You are a Miss Fitness Olympia. Very few people in the world can ever say that, and that also, in my opinion, and for whatever opinions are worth, puts you in a box to where you're as relevant, as important, you're as historically important to me as Samir Banu or Chris Dickerson. The other maybe one and done Olympias. Even though it's bodybuilding, those titles to me are the same. They're commensurate. Mm-hmm. So you're very special for that. That'll never be taken away from you. But ironically, when I think of Monica Brant, I think of your run as a figure competitor. And your work through, I say your work, but what you did between 2002 and I would say 2000, I don't know, 13 or something, but your run was so dominating. But this is the part why I say this is why I became a fan. It was the fact that you didn't always win, but you in my opinion, the biased opinion, you deserved it. It was you were very seldom ever out of the top 5, really seldom out of the top 3. Your career spanned 22 years. I don't know if you know that. You also were one of the most active competitors. You competed over 30 times. And to put that into context, and I promise I'm going to shut up, but to put that into context, I was like, I need to try to make sense of this. So I said, who's the greatest female bodybuilder of all time? I go, Linda Murray. So I looked at her record and I said, wow, Linda Murray competed 20 years. That's awesome. Or 22 years. I go, Monica got her beat. I go, okay, how many contests did Linda Murray do? I go, whatever it was, 30, that was 22. I go, Monica has 30. She's got her beat. Now, Linda, of course, did 11 Olympias, but you did 9. So it's you had this amazing career. And I don't think that people speak to the fact that you were so active, so resilient. I truly don't know how you did it. I don't know how you stayed physically healthy, how you kept the heart to keep coming back. So I'm going to shut up because I said a lot right there.
It's all good.
But can you tell me a little bit about that journey? I mean, Monica, you were unbelievably physically resilient to be able to go on a run like that, and emotionally resilient to come back. That's why I was your fan. I am your fan. So can you just speak to it a little bit?
Well, I have to tell you, I believe it was 26 years that I stayed on stage. It was a little bit longer, right? From 91 to 2016.
Wow. Yeah, that's right, because the WBFF, what was
A WBFF, and then the
yeah.
last show I did was in the UK at a PCA, and I went and did NABA as well.
Wow. Oh my gosh. See, again, still learning things about you right now. How did you physically, maybe
Right.
we'll start there. You know, how did you, because you had to prepare, you have to get in shape, you have to diet. I love pizza and cake. How did you do that for 20
Yeah.
years?
Hey, I'm a professed cakeaholic, if you didn't know that. So
No.
I do love cake, and has to have icing on it. And I don't care if there's ice cream or not. I just love cake and icing.
I understand.
Yeah. Well, you know, the journey it's very simple in the beginning. I was a very competitive athlete growing up, and in track and volleyball and horses. My mom was a horse trainer. We lived out in the country, and we had 20 acres. So I showed horses in the summer, and in school I ran track. I was very successful in my track career in school. And then I played volleyball, and I just loved being athletic, I guess, right?
Sure.
And so when graduated high school, went to college for horses, actually my first year of college. Came back from that. I couldn't continue. My parents divorced, and it was just kind of one of those things where I had to kind of figure it out on my own at 19 or 20, I guess. 19 when I came back. So anyways, it was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. I started, doing bikini contests in bars. I was a waitress. I became a bud girl for Budweiser. I was a bud girl.
Yeah.
I was giving riding lessons. Like when I got out, because my parents were divorced, everything got sold, and I got out on my first year of college and trying to make it on my own, basically, trying to juggle, like, what am I doing? I started going to just a school here in San Antonio, like a community college, because I didn't really know the direction I wanted to go. Because my big dream was horses. Like that was my passion, really? What I loved. And I was accepted to Texas A&M, and my last 2 years of high school, I went to a private Christian school, and there was literally no track to speak of. Like I could win everything, and I didn't even have to practice. But the public school I went to, I was very successful in track. And so when I graduated high school, I got accepted to Texas A&M. My coach from the public school wanted to talk to them about me and the track program at A&M, but I chose to go up to Missouri and ride horses at a fine arts college for women at the time. Wow. It's still around today. And they were one of the two colleges in the States that had an equestrian science department that you could actually major in. And now, I don't know if you know this or not, but now there's close to 30 universities in the country that have equestrian teams.
That's awesome. Wow.
So my husband trains these girls and coaches them all the way up to they graduate high school, and they get on the equestrian team. So for instance, one of the girls that literally just graduated high school, and she just started at Texas A&M, and she was the #1 draft pick of the whole country for the horse teams. Amazing. So kind of funny, just like,
wow. I mean, he's got to be like of an exceptional caliber to coach her and to be able to kind of do that.
He's very good at what he does, but not to get us sidetracked on that.
Oh,
but
it's great.
That was my passion, like horses and track. And I was laughing because I was telling the girl's mom yesterday, she and I were talking, and I said, I got accepted to A&M, and I always wonder if I'd gone to A&M, what would my career path have been? And if I had started running track there, and because that was, I loved horses and track. That was it.
Yeah. You're such a competitor. I mean, you would have gone to the Olympics. I mean, you're such a competitor.
Like, who knows? I could say that now. I said, I would have been in the Olympics, but anyways,
you would have gotten close. You would have gotten.
I was a competitive person, and I started doing just some of the I was doing the bikini contests around town because I just needed some extra cash. And I was like, it became, my brother took me to my first one. He's like, hey, this girl I know is doing a bikini contest. You've got a better body than her. Why don't you come do it? I was like, so I came in second. My first one, I won $100. And I was like, so I ended up doing 4 years of those things. I made a lot of money doing that. Just, kind of just standard, just bikini contests at whatever nightclub or whatever. And I ended up winning a car at a big
Wow.
statewide event, and that was my last one in 1994. I won a Mustang, and I traded it in, got the money, and paid off my car and all that. But
Yeah.
well, along that kind of same time, I ended up learning about fitness competitions, and I just kind of dove into playing around with them.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of history there, kind of like, so many little, I'll say, girl stories.
Sure,
but,
sure.
but in 91, that's what I did. And
Yeah.
then kind of just dabbled in that a little bit. And then I had an opportunity to do the Wally Boyko's Fitness USA Nationals in 1995.
Mhm.
And that was held in Buena Park.
Fun.
So I went out and the year before I actually did one in Venice, and I won that one.
Wow.
I thought, coming from Texas, I'm like, well, you got to go compete with the California girls. You
Sure.
always have
Sure.
this image of what California was going to be or whatever. So I won that show, and that's when well, let me just backtrack, because it's always about who you meet along the way.
Sure.
And
Right.
with those opportunities, right?
Yeah, of course.
So in 1992, or 93, 92, I met a guy in 92 that was a bodybuilder, spring break.
Mhm.
And I didn't know much about bodybuilding, to be honest. I didn't really know the industry. I was 92, I was 21
Right.
that summer.
Sure.
So I'd gone with some friends down to the coast, and I met a guy down there who was a bodybuilder, and we kept in touch. And he had asked me, he's like, why aren't you competing? I'm like, well, I did a fitness show in 91. He's like, well, you still should be doing it. He kind of gave me a hard time about not sticking with it. So
Right.
93, I flew out with a girlfriend of mine to go watch him compete. He was doing the USA. Was it the USA or the Nationals? Maybe it was the Nationals. I don't remember, but
Mhm.
because the USA is always in Vegas, I believe. But I don't know. 1993, who knows what it was? It was
Sure.
it was one of the NPC national competitions. I flew with my girlfriend. It was in Tijuana.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
So she and I, we went and met up with him and his friends, and he went to compete. Well, while we were there at the show, and again, I didn't know much about bodybuilding. That might have been my very first bodybuilding contest that I'd ever been to.
Mhm.
I just, I was young. I didn't know anything about it. So he introduces me to John Perillo. Remember
Wow.
John Perillo?
Yeah. Yeah. Photographer?
Hmm?
Was he a photographer?
No, John Perillo had one of the top supplement lines at the time. And he had a little magazine out called Perillo Performance.
Oh, Gorilla. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So my friend that I knew introduces me to him. He's at the show because they had like a little expo, because remember, it's a national show. And so I meet John, and John's like, you need to meet these two guys. He's like, I got to introduce you to some friends. So he introduces me to Steve Winterstrom and Ralph DeHaan. Well, I didn't know at the time, but Ralph DeHaan was a contracted photographer for Muscle and Fitness.
Amazing.
And Steve Winterstrom, was kind of like the name who kept all of the women's bodybuilding history for years. And so these two guys were really good friends. They lived down in Southern California, and I kind of kept in touch with them because that's what I'm a relationship person. Like once I meet someone, it's like, oh, And Ralph, who was a contracted photographer for Muscle and Fitness, and I at the time I knew nothing about that. I didn't know what that meant. I'd never seen Muscle and Fitness that I knew of. Like I didn't know anything. And he says, well, if you ever come back to California, he goes, and he says, we'll do a photo shoot. And I've been playing with photography, and I had not me, but doing photo shoots since I was 14.
Sure.
My mom had put me in a modeling class, a little country girl, modeling class that was at the hair salon. And then I had gotten in touch with an agency here in San Antonio when I was in my early 20s, when I came back from college. So I had very small little things. I'd gotten on a couple little commercials, all San Antonio stuff, but I didn't really have the right look because I was more muscular. And at the time, muscles weren't really in. It was like the skinny bikini body was in. It wasn't like the real muscular. So here in San Antonio, it was like that kind of, you either had to be Hispanic or skinny, bikini looking girl. And I was not either of those, right? So I didn't really fit the mold for the agencies here in town. But anyways, I got a couple little things. And so when I met Ralph out there in California, that was a winter of 93. And then I get into 94, I decide I'm going to compete in, because I ended up competing in 93. And then I decided I was going to do the Venice show in Venice, California. That was June of 94. Well, this is a funny little story. Around March or April 94, my girlfriends, there was 5 of us girls. We take a trip. Mind you, we're all like 23, 22, 23. We take a trip, 5 of us crazy girls, to California, and we stay out there for like 5 days. And we stay in one little hotel room, 5 of us.
Oh.
And I know, right? You can imagine.
Yeah.
Shopping. I mean, we had rented a car.
No one
like
sleeps. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were all cute. I have to say we were all very cute. And so we went out every night and did all the, LA thing.
Sure.
Well, at the end of the trip, my best friend and I go down to San Diego and do a test shoot with Ralph DeHaan.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't realize that you do the photo shoot first and then you go do your party time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what happened is I ended up doing we went and did the shoot, and I had her go with me because I was like, I don't know this guy. But
right. Yeah.
So we did a shoot, and the pictures actually turned out, and they actually ended up in the Muscle and Fitness magazine a couple times.
Your first shoot. Amazing.
I know, right? And then he says, well, he goes, if you ever come back to California, let me know and we'll shoot again. So it's okay. So a few months later, I come to Venice, I compete, I win. And I had booked another shoot with him. Again, my girlfriend goes down with me, and we're going to do this photo shoot with him. Well, that time he says, hey, listen, I've got a guy, Dennis Newman, that I'm shooting.
Newman. Wow. Yeah.
He's like, I'm shooting this guy, Dennis Newman. Can you stay an extra day? He didn't tell me until I got there, because I think he wanted to see how I looked, right? It wasn't going to shoot. Like in his mind, he's like, I don't want to shoot her if she's not in good shape or whatever. And so he had asked if I could stay an extra day. And I remember my girlfriend and I talking about it. And I was like, well, we can stay. Back then in the 90s, you could change flights, no big deal.
Right.
And so we decided to stay another day and see what this was all about. And I didn't know who Dennis Newman was. I didn't know what it meant to shoot with a guy or anything like that, right?
Yeah. He was probably fresh off the USA's or something himself. Wow. That's amazing.
This one.
Monica, I may have bought that magazine. I may have owned that. Yeah.
So the funny thing is, you're absolutely right. He had just won the USA.
Maddie? Wow. Yeah.
And look who's in the front of the magazine, right? Like, I'm in the front.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is my own hair and makeup, my own little thing. And like, we didn't, he didn't have anyone there to shoot, but I show up and I'm like, who's Dennis Newman? And I didn't even know, like, we just doing these photos. I had no idea it could be a cover.
Yeah. Amazing.
And I still didn't know what it meant to be a contracted photographer for a magazine.
Right. And not to interrupt you, but I want to, for everybody too, if they're not aware, if they're not already aware, Monica went on to be on the cover of more than 100 international magazines. So she was extremely successful, unbelievably marketable, and that's in like a huge feat. That's a lot. She deserves a lot of recognition for that. And again, earlier when I made the correlation to Samir and Chris Dickerson and stuff, I really mean that, because she not only achieved in her own right the pinnacle of what she could in her sport, just like they did, but moreover, she transcended the sport by being a cover model. She was marketable to the everyday average Joe, the mom in the store, everybody. And to this day has a thriving career because of it. So I just want to stop and acknowledge that. So sorry, please. Yeah, sincere.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of imagine, like, I show up at this, warehouse with my friend, and we're like, I don't know what's going on, but we're there, we're going to see. And sure enough, Dennis Newman is there shooting. It's a big gym looking, because the photographer had his own setup. He had his own studio. And so Dennis is there shooting, and they introduced me, and I'm like, he looks like Superman.
Yeah. He was super marketable too. Yeah.
Like, he's like, he looks like Superman. And so I was just I was a little stunned, because I'm like, who is this? And what is going on? But we shoot. And then my girlfriend and I go home and back to Texas, and maybe a few months go by and I get a call. And back then, you remember it was a little recorder. You get home and it was a blinking light and you push the button and you're like,
Yes.
you have 4 messages. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah. So I had gone home and sure enough, Ralph DeHaan had called and he says, hey, cover model. Hey, cover girl.
Amazing.
Just thought I'd let you know you're going to be on November 94 cover of Muscle and Fitness. I really didn't know what that meant. I was just like, what is that? What is that? Because I still had never bought a magazine. I didn't really understand where all these magazines would go. And, so when they did come out, the funny thing is I got a $200 check from Muscle and Fitness.
Wow.
And that's what they paid
for a cover. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's much more than that now. It might be close to the same. I don't know. They always say, well, it's, you get exposure, which true. But
it was true for you for sure. I mean, you became a star. You became very famous. I mean, sincerely. And again, I don't say it lightly. You transcended just the sport. I think fitness, figure, bodybuilding, and we're niche, and I hate that because fitness isn't niche. Fitness is all over the world, but those sports they like to keep themselves in their boxes, and you and a very few others were able to kind of blow that box up. I think guys like Greg Plitt, who's no longer with us, and some other people were able to do those things, but they were very few could actually do it, and you're one of them. You may be the only woman in my opinion. So it's notable. It's very important. Transitioning a little, because I also kind of wanted to pick your brain. You've always been a contributor too to magazines in other ways, and currently now, with Bodyscaping. How did you get into writing columns and Q&As and answering that sort of stuff?
Well, the magazines back then were very hands-on with the athletes, and they wanted to bring the athletes to the public, right? Because there was no internet at the time. There was no social media. It was literally magazines were the only way, as to keep up with your athlete keep up with the fans to keep up with the athletes. Right. So the magazines back then, Robert Kennedy and Joe Weider, those guys. And of course, you had the other ones like Iron Man magazine and some of them smaller ones, but they really did their part with helping to produce stars through their pages. Yeah. And now it's like everyone can just make themselves a star as much as they want, right? But with social media and do whatever they need to increase their followers and all that. But back then it was really about the magazines, and they wanted to showcase the athletes as best that they could, as often as they could. So the magazine publishers would come to us and ask us to do things. They'd ask us to, write for them, to have a column, to, obviously, and then, do features and so forth. So, it was just kind of that whole kind of piece. Like they wanted to bring us in and let us have a voice for our audience.
Did they ever, I'm sure they competed, of course, with each other, but did you ever, as an athlete or as somebody in that, I guess, I want to phrase this without it being controversial.
Okay.
Well, do you feel like you were maybe penalized because you were almost a victim of your own success, because you were in Robert Kennedy's magazine, you were in other magazines, but then you're competing in a Weider organization? Do you think that negatively impacted your career?
Well, there's a big story behind all of that. And I'll just say that I don't believe that there was quite a few years where I wasn't involved with a certain organization to the extent that they wanted me to be involved with. And there was some things that I chose not to do that I think kept me from being allowed to win. But I do believe that, God opened up other doors for me because I kept my heart right. I was true to myself. I didn't sign something that I didn't feel had integrity and was something that I wanted to put my name behind. And so, there was definitely a lot of negativity from 1997, right before the Olympia on. I had a lot of pushback. And I will say, I'm a Christian, so my faith is everything to me. And I feel like God's allowed a lot of things in my life and opened up doors for me for different reasons. And always it's about other people. Yeah. But in 1998, when I went and won the Fitness Olympia that year, that was the only year that the Fitness Olympia was in another country. And I do believe that I one, because there was a lot of European judges there who weren't part of all the stuff that was going on here.
Sure, sure.
And so I, and then I think God gave me that win, so that I'd always have it, that I would be able to have, because he knew what was going to happen the rest of the time.
Right, right.
That I was probably not going to want to join a specific organization that would not have an integrity that I wanted to have, that I wanted to sign with. So anyways, and without going into more detail, there's some things that
No, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And transitioning, but you did say something that's awesome. And again, there's a compliment for you in this. You made a comment there, just that you said something, you put your name behind. And I want to thank you for that, because that is something that, it's very true. It's very apparent, and again, I followed you for over 20 years, but your integrity, it's very clear that that's important to you. And an example of that to me is the fact that I'm going to give you a real example. The Monica Brant boot camp. That kicked my butt. But even the work you do with, is it Surreal, the skincare, MD, and sort of these organizations and things you put your name behind and you affiliate with are credible, and these are things as a consumer. I did the Monica Brant boot camp. I tried it. I vetted it. I got the skincare system because one day I was like, oh no, what's going on here? And, and I watched a video and I said, hey, I listened to her. So these are things that, they translate because through years, you've lived kind of a path of integrity too. But let's, since I brought it up, can you share a little bit about that skincare system? I know it's probably random, but I'm sure there's got to be someone out there that'd like to learn a little bit about it, or at least your partnership.
Are you talking about the Sear MD?
Sear MD, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, they're good friends of mine, and I actually coached their daughter for a while. I was training their daughter. So they came to me and just asked if I would be interested in looking into the line, and they got a beautiful line. Yeah, I mean, it's quality.
My wife stole all this stuff. I bought something for my crow's things. She stole it all. I was like, hey, that's my protocol.
Yeah, it's good. It's good product. It comes from a great family. So, one of the things I think I've been really fortunate to have access to is when I start working with companies, I get to know the families that, and I say that, but it seems that a lot of the companies that I've worked with are all family owned and founded and created. And so I love the fact that I've gotten to know the families. I love that I can support their product line because it lines up with me and what I want for myself, and I can share about, but it also then I'm supporting them and their family business. And it's just a really cool union, I guess.
Of course. Yeah.
So over all the years.
Yeah. I think that like minds find each other, and yeah, exactly. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Well, kind of bringing this a little bit to a conclusion, where can people, other than Tuesdays, if they can tune into your show, where else can they find you to follow you for anything, all the updates and all the exciting things you have going on? Sure.
Well, let's see, 2020, I lost my Instagram. It got hacked, stolen. Oh. So I've been trying to rebuild, but it's a official Monica Brant because I lost my name, sadly. And I could never get Instagram to come back and help me.
So difficult.
Yeah. So I am official Monica Brant on Instagram. I do have Twitter with just Monica Brant. I don't use that a whole lot. Some. And then the Monica, I've got monicabrant.com. My new website is just currently up, brand new. And then, of course, the Monica Brant Show is hosted right now on my YouTube channel, Monica Brant Fan TV. And then on Facebook in May, my big Monica Brant public page was also hacked.
Oh no!
And wow. I've got everything, everything into Facebook that they need to get me back, because I had that page since 2009, I think. Yeah,
wow.
And that's just Monica Brant.
Yeah.
Over there. And so I don't know what's taking so long on that end. It's just really frustrating trying to deal with that. But I do have Monica Jean Brant, which is my personal Facebook page. But in the meantime, we're trying to get Monica Brant back. But yeah, people can find me on those other places. And
And I'll include all the links in below for everybody
Okay.
as well to kind of make it really easy for them. But I definitely wanted to give you an opportunity to share all that, especially those updates. That's crazy. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Monica,
And I have a lot of really great guests coming up for the show. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like it. Absolutely. I mean, I'm tuning in for two of them without a doubt. Yeah, Lee Haney. And then what was the name of the cover model you mentioned from Georgia?
Oh, from the country, Georgia.
From the country, Georgia, correct.
That's not crazy. Her name is E. Katarina.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not gonna say her last name because I'll butcher it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. No, I'll make a mental note. Yeah. Well, I will certainly tune in for both of those.
Awesome.
Monica, I can't thank you enough. I know you're extremely busy. This was
Oh,
a real pleasure for me, sincerely, like very
thank
sincerely.
you.
And keep doing everything you're doing. I know you're so busy, but stay busy because people are watching and you're motivating people, and you're an important person, you know, so thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for honoring me with the time. I appreciate it, John. You have a blessed rest of your day and with your show and all that you're doing too.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Monica.
having me. And thanks for following me for 20 years. That's awesome.
Of course. It's been really easy. Trust me. Thank you, Monica.
All right. Bye.
Bye.